Oh, look at that. I think we're live. And the auto zoom's going in and out as it usually does as well. Oh, I'm slightly disorganized. Ever so slightly late, like a minute late. I know that's not a big deal, but I was sitting doing something on my PC and suddenly realized the time. Thought, I have to go and get my live stream happening. So here I am. A little lime cordial. Made it myself with limes. Who's here in the chat? Hi, Musical Aviator and Fox of Fate and Belinda and Luke. Now, as I said, I'm a little bit disorganized, so I've just got to pop out the chat, get my windows arranged. And hi, Brett. See you there too. Just change it from top chat to live chat just to make sure I don't miss anything. Not like YouTube remembers preferences or anything useful like that. But, yeah, okay. I reckon I'm sorted now. With Thons Mimsy at the moment. Not sure where she is. She's around somewhere. I was at Royal Melbourne Hospital today for a lot of the day, for about 5 hours, visiting ANZAC, who is having an extended hospital stay because of weird things wrong with his legs. Weird thing Mrs. Angry got. It's a nail shiner, nail buffer. What if I can make my nails shiny? No, I think it works. Oh, we're talking about Dawn services. You were going to get up at 5 a.m. But you slept in. I did not go to a dawn service, no. I don't have any history with the military, either myself or my family. Let's we forget. Okay, the things that are getting super weird about ANZAC Day. Since about the 80s, the government's been really fetishizing ANZAC Day. Like, it had all but died out. And after a couple of decades of being told how we have to be about ANZAC Day, we get, well, probably my favorite is people who say, unless we forget, because they don't know the real thing of lest we forget, which means we should not forget, which is good sentiment in as much as we should not forget just how fucked war is, and that we really shouldn't do it apart as a last resort. And you know, maybe if it was the politicians and the generals forced on the front lines, things would get sorted out a lot quicker than the disturbing tendency to treat young men as disposable, because it has, of course, historically been overwhelmingly men in the firing line in wars, and young men in particular. And that's the other thing, if you're going to go with the lest we forget, the whole thing, all the service people, it isn't just frontline troops, combat troops who are affected by wars. It's not just combat troops who are casualties. It's the support service people. It's the medical corps. It is civilians. And of course, don't forget about how it affects the families of soldiers and others who are killed in war. The idea that lest we forget means worship all soldiers is fucking ridiculous. What it should be is literally, don't forget the cost of war, don't forget the impact of war, don't forget to take into account just how horrific the sacrifices of war are. And while we obviously think front and center of combat troops, because that's quite horrific what they go through. The impact of war goes way beyond combat troops. And I really do not like mealy-mouthed, platitude-spouting fuckwits who think they get to define what orthodoxy is, and they will literally run you out of the country if you're not careful, if you dare to speak up. Keanu, it's also for peacetime service members who maintain the stance. Well, I've got no trouble with active service people who aren't, obviously, preferably, most of the time, we're not at war. And I have no problem with active service people who are not active combat duty representing on ANZAC Day. So, Dr. Obama, do I think Gallipoli is glorified? I think the most polite thing you could say about the sort of shit being pushed by the government and other conservative forces about ANZAC Day is it's mythologized, and I mean that literally, in that they lie. All the stories that get pushed in school to the kiddies and through the media and political platitudes, the overwhelming thing of the stories people think they know about, and it's ANZAC Day, so let's focus specifically on the ANZAC campaign in Gallipoli, the invasion of Turkey in World War I. All the archetypal stories out of that are at best exaggerated to the point of mythologizing. And oh my God, the Conservative government in Australia in particular tend to outright fucking lie. Now, you go, if you really want to think about, I mean, because I've actually done research on the Gallipoli campaign, and it was horrific, the conditions that they face in both sides. Obviously, again, something that gets glossed over all the time in Turkey, sorry, in Australia, not in Turkey. Turkey's very supportive. Gets glossed over all the time in Australia is the Turkish troops suffered much higher casualties than the ANZAC troops. And let's not forget, they were defending their homeland. And the big ANZAC commemorations are held in Turkey. And since the commemorations started, the Turkish government has been very supportive of Australian, New Zealand, British, other allied forces wanting to have memorial services in Gallipoli. And it's really disturbing the number of people who don't recognize just how much the Turkish government supports the ANZAC commemorations. And a large number of hideous bogan fuckwits are incredibly insulting to the Turkish people, and it is really not on. Dr. Obama, I noticed you bring up Kokoda. That's a very interesting one. That's a World War II campaign. For those who don't know, the Japanese Imperial Army worked their way through Southeast Asia. They invaded China before the official start of World War II. Then, you know, they bombed Pearl Harbor, which got them actively involved in World War II. And they were an unstoppable force, ploughing their way through Southeast Asia. They routed the Allies repeatedly in the Philippines, in Malaysia, and the Japanese Imperial forces were marching on to Australia. Now, Australia's best troops, Australia's most combat experienced troops were mostly in the Africa campaign. And the then Prime Minister of Australia was like, oh, this is bad, we need our troops back. And he was saying to Winston Churchill, we need our troops back. The Japanese are right on the verge of invading Australia. And Churchill was reputed to not particularly care. He regarded the war with Germany as the big thing. And he's reputed to have said, when someone said, there is a real danger the Japanese will take Australia, he is reputed to have said, let them, after I deal with Hitler, we'll take Australia back, which kind of maybe made perfect sense to Churchill, but to the Australian Prime Minister, not good at all. So last line of defense in Papua New Guinea on the Kokoda Trail was reservists who were disparagingly referred to as chocolate soldiers because they weren't full combat troops. Yes, Mimsy's come in to say hello, and she wants more attention. Okay, and these reservists held the Japanese on the Kokoda Trail. These Japanese forces had overrun Allied forces, American, British, Australian, and others in the Philippines, in Malaysia. They were undefeated. And the last thing stopping them from invading Australia were reservists who miraculously stopped the Japanese advance. It was a jungle campaign. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. And that was just, you know, nightmarish. And they held them long enough for Australian Prime Minister John Curtin to ignore Churchill's wishes and actually get our sort of battle veteran soldiers back, who, I guess, I said they were mostly in the Africa campaign. Famous Rats of Tobruk, if you've ever heard of them, were mainly Australian. And yeah, then the regular forces reinforced the reservists who'd been holding back the Japanese. And there were some truly shameful things said at the time by politicians and media who underplayed what the reservists had done on the Kokoda Trail. But a couple of people who knew the real story got it out, that it was just amazing that they held their ground with only slight retreats against this previously undefeated army. So yeah, we were yay close to a land invasion of Australia. So it was a very close. Brett, if your great-grandfather, yeah, that was Egypt, I think, was like a training ground for a lot of the Allied forces. Yeah, if anyone who either was, you know, missed Gallipoli or survived Gallipoli, that wasn't the end of the war. It was on more training, and then the horrors of the European campaign, the fucking trenches in France, the Somme, Flanders, all that absolute fucking horror of the European campaign in World War II. Another thing that I think people are so poorly informed about the ANZAC campaign, despite all the ridiculous mythologizing of it. A lot of people seem to think that was Australia's involvement in World War I. No, that was one limited campaign that failed, was remarkably effective withdrawal, though. It was one of the, you could count, that was a smaller scale than, what was the World War II one? Where all the British troops, they got them off the beaches in France. Why have I've just watched the movie again not long ago, the Christopher Nolan movie. I've blanked. And hello, nobody. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, I know these chocos are still reservist, or reservists are still chocos. Nice. No, Dr. Brown, I'm not talking about D-Day. That was the invasion. There was a thing where right at the start, or very early in the war, Dunkirk, thanks, Dr. Obama. Shazi, hail Saturn. I like that. Goddess of silky sheets. Yes, Dunkirk was what I was thinking of. That was one of the most amazingly successful retreats in history, because they thought they were going to lose their whole army, and the vast majority of them were actually evacuated. Same deal in Gallipoli. The tactics were completely wrong. And that was a fucking Churchill campaign too, the Dardanelles. He had this great thing about controlling shipping lanes and etc. And the campaigns are fucked up. But yes, the actual strategy of the Gallipoli campaign was fucked. It was a remarkably effective withdrawal, though. So few casualties suffered in the withdrawal. But here. Nobody, man, if your meds are making you a bit off balance, there's no need to be hard on yourself. If I say something stupid, it's just because I say stupid things. Let's see. Pixie, your dad's a reservist. Cool. Closest I've come is working for a while for the Defense Department. As I said, not in the military as such, but working for the Department of Defense in an administrative role. I actually quite liked working. Okay, there's a weird bit of trivia that I've probably shared before, but it was when I was working for Defense, is when actually killed Bin Laden. And there's barracks on St Kilda Road, just outside the CBD in Sydney, and I was there sometimes, and on a day I was there seeing some people. I was working on this project to improve their materiel support. There are two things. Okay, I love military. I have to admit, I love military terminology. And the Army has, and I guess this is all armed forces, they have personnel, people, materiel, everything else. And there had long been sources of complaints about supply of materiel. Australia had active service people in Iraq and Afghanistan at this time. And there'd been a lot of complaints about the supply. And so I was actually working on a project to improve materiel. That's how you pronounce it. It's not like shirt material, IAL, it's IEL, materiel. But anyway, I was at the barracks in St Kilda Road and walking between things. And there's just this reception area where they had big screens, and the press conference was going on with Obama saying, "We killed Bin Laden." And I always remember there was a dude in uniform. He was obviously on active duty, but he was back in Melbourne, and he was just watching the screen, and he had the biggest goddamn smile on his face. And I did talk to him. He had service in Afghanistan and was going back. But just for him, it was just like he just was watching this thing about them having killed Bin Laden, and he just had the biggest smile on his face. And I thought, yeah, I guess so. Should I say your granddad lost an eye at Gallipoli? Sounds careless. Sounds very careless. I believe the military likes you to take care of your eyes. At least he had a spare. What was that in? That was in 300. One of the guys has lost an eye in the battle, and Leonidas says to him, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Just a scratch, my lord. It's only an eye. The gods saw fit to give me a spare." So Charlie's coming here. Said hello to Mimsy. She's settled down now. She was doing her usual demanding attention from me, but she's settled down a bit now. Shirazi, he was in a war zone and you say he had no say in what happened? That's outrageous. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, again, I will say, like, we get all this glorious thing. Like, if you're an Australian school kid, you got told the story of Simpson and his donkey, which was the bad things about that story is it's 50% bullshit and 50% acting as if every ambulance personnel is not taking the same risks and showing the same heroism. But geez, I tell you what, like some of the battles there, one just notoriously called the Neck, when they ended up in just close quarters battle, and it's like running these troops that don't have any ammunition. Then they're fighting with bayonets, and like their bayonets broke, and then they're fighting for their lives. There's like ANZAC and Turkish troops in the same trench, and they're just fighting hand to hand for their lives, you know, like with rocks in their hand. And this is no flashy sort of Hollywood movie choreographed fight. This is wrestling and grabbing in the mud. And you read some of these stories and they're absolutely horrific. And the vast majority on both sides were young men, like who'd never left their own country. A lot of these ANZAC troops shipped off to the Gallipoli campaign. It was their first time leaving their own country. And the young Turkishmen defending their own country, they'd never been anywhere else, and they're just thrown into this situation. Oh, fucking hell, absolutely. Oh my God, Keanu, that is such a military thing to say. Yes, granddaddy lost the eye. Should have gone to Q store and asked for one on loss and damages. Oh my God. I heard it was a podcast I heard, and it was really funny. I was this real radical lefty podcast called Chapo Trap House. They were reviewing, I think it was a book or a series of articles by this guy, and they had a guest on the show who was an Iraq War veteran. And by sheer coincidence, the guy whose stuff they were reading and picking on, his surname's Boot. And in US military, a boot is a new recruit who's a complete fucking idiot and still believes everything the government and officers tell them. And so this Iraq vet, and because this guy Boot is not a military veteran, but he's always, you know, doing that ultra stupid American right-wing politics thing of, you know, America dominating the world type thing. And I just remember the comment that he's just laughing so much because he can't get over that the guy's name's Boot, and he just keeps coming back to, oh my God, this guy is such a fucking Boot. Which is funny, a little bit of trivia. Shirazi, yeah, look, I would agree. Calling Chapo hit or miss, I think that's quite reasonable. I find them entertaining because they just go for it. As I still say, probably the only podcast I've heard that I really like, still only one, is the Blind Boy podcast. Although there was another one I was listening to, but it doesn't even run anymore, so I don't think it counts. Which I think I've talked about in a live stream called Whiting Wongs. It's Dan Harmon, you know, Rick and Morty creator and community creator, and he's doing a podcast with one of the writers from season 3 of Rick and Morty, Jessica Gao. She wrote the Pickle Rick. She was the lead writer on the Pickle Rick episode. They have a writer's room, but the episodes usually have a lead writer, and they're just talking wholeheartedly about issues of race, and it's quite entertaining because they just go, Harmontown, yeah, Keanu, I tried Harmontown, and maybe I should give it another go, because I'd heard excerpts from Harmontown that I thought were okay, and I listened to a recent one and I couldn't get into it at all, which surprised me, because this Whiting Wong's one I was really into. I'm in the second last one they've done, because Dan Harmon basically says I have to get seriously back into Rick and Morty. So we'll hopefully see new Rick and Morty this year. My God, that's a challenging show as well. Like, I really enjoy the show Rick and Morty. I think it has heaps of good stuff in it. Where are you going? Where are you going? I think Rick and Morty has heaps of good stuff in it. But holy shit, it has such a toxic element in the fan base. Like, really awful, gross, reprehensible people. So it's a real two-edged sword, sort of like, yeah, like Rick and Morty, but I'm completely conscious of there is a disturbing number of times if someone says they're a Rick and Morty fan, they could be they could be bloody an awful person. Yeah, Rianu Keeves. I think I'll give Harmontown another go, because I'll run out of Whiting Wong's episodes. Yeah, and I figured they'll be back after they do a season of Rick and Morty. So the other Netflix animation I really like, BoJack Horseman. I really like that show. Again, they probably have real dickhead fans too. Everything, the world's full of dickheads. Dickheads are allowed to like good things, I guess. Dickheads don't have to just like stupid things. But yeah. Yeah, I think it's just like that hardcore element of Rick and Morty. And the fun thing is, if like you hear Dan Harmon, he's not an asshole. So it's got to be a real challenge that you create something that's really simple. Sorry, not really simple, something that's really successful. I'm sure he's proud of it. It's like a super successful show. But you have this publicly highly visible toxic fan base that, I mean, are utter fuckwits. Like, they're such fucking arseholes. Like, some of that video that came out of, when the whole McDonald's Szechuan sauce thing happened, when hundreds of them stormed McDonald's and abused and harassed the staff. Oh, nobody, look after yourself, buddy, okay? Hopefully things are going to normalize for you soon. But yeah, if it's all a bit much, going to bed before you pass out seems like a good idea. But yeah, like that video of those fuckwits abusing McDonald's staff and screaming and jumping on tables, it's just like, yep. See, this is why I don't agree with the snap, in Infinity War. I give me enough time and I probably will wipe out half the sapient life forms in the universe, but I'm going to be choosing who it is. You just got to give me time, and I'll soon just reduce all the dickheads in the world. Yeah, Dr. Obama, the guy who jumped on the counter screaming about the sauce was secret trolling. That was neither secret nor trolling. That was being a cunt. Okay. anyone can try and justify that anytime, any way they like. That was the behavior of a cunt. And, you know, if, you know, he got a landscaping job and accidentally fell headfirst into a wood chipper, I wouldn't shed any tears, quite honestly, because fuck people like that. That guy's a fucking asshole. And I mean, yeah, the old Thanos snap, mate. Rihanna, I'm not gonna be too extreme. I mean, like, only the real assholes will go at first, you know, and that's you know, the murderers, rapists, terrorists, and, you know, probably a few heads of government. But then people will get a very clear warning. Okay, you need to stop the shit 100%, or you're next. My godlike powers will smote you. And then someone says, oh, but what about, I need revenge on what that guy did last week. It's no, fuck it, I told you, you do that again. And I think I'd get my way through half the population soon enough. Israel 9, you ended up in hospital? Oh no, what landed you in hospital? I've been visiting in hospital today, but doing chat through the smartphone. But yeah, no, my initial one, if I had godlike smiting powers, the initial run would just be, yeah, the murderers, rapists, terrorists, and like I said, probably a few heads of state. And then it's, you know, be very public, and it's like, okay, now you've all got to pull your fucking heads in. And anyone not want to go my way? No, okay, you're gone too. So yeah, I think my tolerance for people had run out, and I would end up taking out half the population, but it'd be targeted. He's gave it. You got a 1 day week. That's okay. CrossFitter, look, I'm not going to be too harsh on anyone wearing a MAGA cap. I'm just going to be absolutely direct in that, you're worthless fucking scum, aren't you? I mean, I'm all up with, who was it who said a MAGA cap is basically a modern day clan hood? Because it fucking is. It's an aggressive statement of your extremely bigoted views. Rihanna, thanks for dropping by. You got to put a young'un to bed. I understand that. Mine are no longer young'uns. They look after themselves. But yes, I did go through that phase, obviously. I wish an occasion. I just read yawing about when, like, a magical MAGA scarf that slowly tightens themselves around her. I think it'd just tighten if they say or do something obnoxious. Just, you know, initially, it's just a little sort of, no, not that, not that, no, don't abuse the staff in this restaurant, say they get out, and then it just, you know, at a certain point, cuts off their air. What comes no work this week? I'm not actually working this week either. I just finished a contract. I'm seeing someone tomorrow about starting another one, so we'll see. Mr. Ryan, you're going to watch the 1984 movie on YouTube. I really randomly wanted to watch last night. I wanted to watch a few of the songs from the movie Pink Floyd, The Wall. And I thought, YouTube will have those, and it did. YouTube delivered. So yeah, I was just watching my favorite bits from Pink Floyd, The Wall. And randomly, and maybe the reason this popped into my head was ANZAC Day, but I just watched Saving Private Ryan, which is, of course, World War II, not World War I, and it's the Normandy landing and focuses on Americans. Doesn't have any Australians in it. But mostly I wanted to watch that first 20 minutes, the actual recreation of the Normandy landing, because it's so fucking intense. And ended up watching the whole thing. I hadn't watched the whole movie in ages, but I had the disc sitting there, and I just watched it. Yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, you can pick holes in it if you want to. You can pick holes in anything, but I just chose to enjoy it. Dr. Obama, did I hear about Fraser Anning's party? Well, I heard about one of the people he selected has a criminal record. Another one is bankrupt, which means she's not eligible. I heard his staff is full of neo-Nazis. This Fox question, I have seen Platoon, that Oliver Stone movie. Not for ages though, and I don't think I watched it all in one go. I think I watched bits of it. I have to admit, I'm quite into war movies. You know, the recent flashy ones, things like Black Hawk Down and We Were Soldiers. I noticed, I saw the trailer on YouTube today, which I didn't know it was getting made, but it's a little bit overdue. A movie about the Battle of Long Tan, when that was one of the more significant engagements of Australian troops in Vietnam, where a group of about 100 Australian soldiers unexpectedly came into contact with a group of between 1,000 and 2,500 VC, and had a couple of very intense days of being completely surrounded. And as was often the case in Vietnam for both Americans and Australians, the only thing that saved them was artillery support, because they were just massively outnumbered and were going to be overrun. They called in artillery strikes almost on their own position to try and stop the advance of the VC troops. And they got out of there, but it's pretty, I've seen a doco on it and I've read a bit on it. It's pretty full on engagement. Little Paddy was off entertaining the troops only a couple of miles away. And yes, it's going to be a movie, come out later this year, I guess. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Dr. Obama, have I seen Fight Club? Yes, I like Fight Club. I quite enjoy Fight Club. It's one of those things that kind of like Rick and Morty, I think. Fight Club, if people just unironically love Tyler Durden and idolize Tyler Durden, they're probably a fuck up. But if you take the movie for what it is, which was, you know, it's basically saying you got to be careful because it's really easy to get young men into fascism, basically. But I think it's a good movie, particularly on a second watching. Because after watching it the first time and you go, oh my God, then you go back and watch it again and all the scenes play out differently when you know about Tyler. And it's like, wow, okay. And you realize they've structured every scene with Tyler to make sense with the big reveal. It's like, wow. Sorry, Miss Foxification. I saw you talking about the apps that spy on the home assistants, which I refuse to have in my house. I mean, my phone's bad enough. It is a surveillance device, but something that's constantly listening, no, that's just, particularly one with a camera, is ridiculous. But yeah, it's all a bit freaky. CrossFit, I had your first halal snack pack today. Nice. I've not had one for ages. My son's coming back tomorrow. He tends to spend a week at his mum's house, then a week at my house, and he's due to come back tomorrow or on the weekend. He loves a halal snack pack. Might end up getting one sometime on the weekend. There's a couple of good places to get halal snack packs around here. So when I first moved here, like 2 years ago, I had trouble finding anywhere nearby. But since then, they've just got more and more popular, so I can get them. Jesus, Luke, don't they have HSPs in South Australia? That's criminal. No, the HSP is for people who think kebabs are too healthy. It's basically layered. You get chips, and then a layer of cheese, and then a layer of kebab meat. Your choice, you know. They usually have a few lamb or chicken or doner kebab, depending on the place. Or you get, I like getting a mix. I like lamb and chicken on it, and then you get sauces on top. I think, what's the Holy Trinity? The New Standard is garlic sauce, chili sauce, and something else. I don't really. I get sweet chili sauce rather than chili sauce, so I'm not that much of a purist. I'm not into really hot stuff. Sweet chili sauce is hot enough for me. Call them ABs in SA. What's AB stand for? Yes, Miss Fox Section. I bet Pauline Hanson does get HSP sent to her house every night. So weird. Like, the fucking idiot bigots have this super bizarre obsession just with the word halal, and they're either just stupid or they're willfully misrepresenting, and it's hard to tell because they always lie to their idiot followers, but sometimes they are actually just genuinely stupid, and it's always hard to work out which of the two. I like when people go about, oh, why do you even have halal products? It's disgusting. And I go, well, it's called capitalism. People say, oh, why is there halal Easter eggs and whatnot? And I go, because these people, these companies want to make more money. And there's this ridiculous line that people like Hanson push, that they say halal certification, yeah, well, that's one misclassification, say funds terrorism, and there was actually an investigation into that which proved no, it doesn't. But the other thing they say is it makes products more expensive. And again, I get these people are very stupid, very stupid, but this is the way capitalism works, is these companies go, we can make more money if we're halal certified, so I'm going to pay for the halal certification, because even though I'm paying that money, the increase in sales vastly exceeds the cost of the certification, so I make more money. And it doesn't make products more expensive. It actually lets the companies sell more. It's just like, what is... Well, I know what's wrong with them. I was about to say, what is wrong with these idiots? But I know what's wrong with them. They're idiots and they're bigots. They pander to really fucking stupid and paranoid people. Blender, I shared the thing on the social media, which was like the zinger of the year, I reckon. I haven't seen a better zinger this week, because that dead shit 19-vote numpty Fraser Anning famously got egged by a kid at one of his Nazi rallies. Egg boy's a hero. And Fraser Anning just, you know, for no reason apart from the fact he's a fuckwit bigot, tweets on Easter Sunday or thereabouts like, oh, don't get halal Easter eggs from any... I think he cited Cadbury and someone else. You know, because they're halal. And he said these other brands aren't halal certified and they taste better, get them. And someone just, with him saying, you know, avoid these eggs from Cadbury, someone responded, as if I'm going to take advice from you about avoiding eggs. He's famously not good at avoiding eggs. Leo did. Hades live with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Yes, and of course, all halal means is allowed, but there's certain foods that have to be prepared a certain way, and it's a much bigger thing with meats. Have to be prepared in a certain way to meet halal standards. As the same as with the Jewish religion, kosher products, and in fact, the kosher guidelines are far more strict than the halal guidelines. The two words about the Islamic regulations about things you can consume is halal and haram. Halal is allowed, haram is forbidden. I'm not sure if it's still on Facebook, but there was a very active Facebook group called the Halal Snack Pack Appreciation Society, where everyone would, try out different HSPs they found at different places and rate them and share pictures of them. But then they would also ask questions about variations. And instead of saying, "Oh, I put pineapple on the HSP, is that good or bad?" The question was always, is this halal or haram? So when somebody thought someone had done something really gross with an HSP, there would just be hundreds of comments that would just go haram, haram, haram. Can't do that. Blinda, according to Google, Subway started processes for getting halal certification. I would think, okay, Subway are going to have trouble with halal certification because, like yon Jewish brethren, Muslim brethren and sistren do not eat the products of the pig. And I don't know if Subway has bacon. It probably does, but it definitely has pork. So there'd be a very strict thing on separating the pork products. I would think for Subway, gaining and maintaining halal certification or kosher certification would be very, very hard. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think it'd be very hard. Dr. Armour, do I use a how to vote card or do it individually? No, I don't need someone to tell me how to vote. I like doing a little bit of research, particularly on the Senate ones, because you get all these fruitcake Senate parties with misleading names, and some of them, are just complete fuckheads. I like doing a bit of research because if you're feeling really industrious and want to number every single box on the Senate paper, there can be something really satisfying about putting someone absolutely last. There's just a feeling of it's not much of an accomplishment, but there can be a real feeling of accomplishment, particularly if there's like a couple hundred people on the Senate paper. Number every single box just so you can put the one you hate the most absolutely last. But yeah, I like to do a bit of research on the Senate because you often get Senate parties with super misleading names. Often, like, the names suggest the complete opposite of what the party actually. Shazzy, how do you use a how to vote card? Well, the how to vote cards are just a suggestion, and you get the major parties and even a lot of the minor parties will give them out, but they basically will say, "Oh, if you like us, then vote in this order." Oh man, a meetup at an HSP place in Melbourne. Yes, please. I like the sound of that. Trying to think what would be a good one because we normally do meetups in the city. Can't think of one. Oh wait, no, I can think of one. I just don't know if it's open on the weekend. one that has a few tables. Shirazi, I was fucking gold that David Lanholm did not get in New South Wales. There was the suggestion that he was going to get in, as you say, because Liberal Democrats confused Liberal Party voters. Oh man, it was so fucking good when because he had that Senate seat from Western Australia and he resigned it. For some reason, he thought getting in New South Wales was his big deal, and he didn't get in. Fucking awesome. That was so good. Because it really looked like he was going to get in. And he's garbage. He's absolute fucking garbage. He didn't get in. So good. And I mean, my biggest problem with Lanholm is he's a fucking liar. Like, he calls himself a libertarian and goes, oh yeah, government out of everything. But then he advocates for regulation of wind power because of the completely non-existent wind turbine syndrome. He just fucking takes money from political donors and does what they want. It's his lies. It's his lies and hypocrisy that shits me. The Heretic, yes, see, Australian politicians say our Liberal Party, capital L Liberal, are the major Conservative party, and they formed under that name in mid-20th century. And you get these ultra-right wingers in America and Europe at the moment who call themselves classical liberals. That's what the Australian Liberal Party is talking about. Dr. Barber, who's the lesser evil? The Liberal Party, HON, UAP. Okay, so Hanson's One Nation, Clive Palmer's, yeah. Oh, look, I'm not a fan of the LNP, but One Nation are evil, lying, racist, science-denying fuckwits, and Clive Palmer's an evil, lying, scamming piece of shit. So a lesser evil is definitely the LNP. Worst evil would be One Nation. Palmer's just a piece of shit, a liar and a scammer and a self-serving, egotistical piece of shit. But One Nation are fucking racist, brain-dead, science-denying, evil fuckwits. So that's my very calm view on those. It's really, like, you've seen those billboards Hanson apparently paid for. I say what you think. Like, it is just this, and that's the classic dog whistle racism, as in the obvious message is you're exactly as racist as me, but you like me because I say the things that you're too scared to say. And that has always been her appeal to racists. It's just like, oh yeah, she's out there saying we're going to be swamped by Asians, we're going to be swamped by Muslims, we're going to be swamped by Africans and gays and feminists. And it's just sick, evil shit. I heard that, Brett, that Palmer's mum had a big ad with all these candidates and their phone numbers were on it. That's ridiculous. Dr. Obama, you think Keating would have destroyed Hanson in Parliament? He was pretty good at the invective, PJ Keating. Quite the master of a turn of phrase was he. I feel, okay, for those who don't know, I'm gonna look some up now. PJ Keating insults. I'm sure there's a good collection. The collected insults of former PM Paul Keating. That's what I was looking for. Who do you say, I want to do you slowly? He was talking to opposition leader John Hewson, who he did beat in an election where no one expected him to. And he says, the answer is, mate, because I want to do you slowly. And in the psychological battle stakes, we're stripped down and ready to go. And when he was putting down the then opposition leader from the Liberal Party, Andrew Peacock, he said, the leader of the opposition is more to be pitied than despised. The poor old thing. The Liberal Party of Australia ought to put him down like a faithful old dog because he's of no use to it and no use to the nation. And again, he was right. Peacock never won election. And he had to go at John Howard, who was the opposition leader at the time, go, he's wound up like a 1,000-day clock. One more half turn, there'll be springs and sprockets all over the building. Mr. Speaker, give him a Valium. And talking to the entire coalition front bench, he said, you were heard in science, so some of you scumbags on the front bench should just wait a minute until you hear the responses from me. Said in Parliament. Yeah, look, hi, how's it going, Mimsy? You're just gonna like get in the way, getting between me and the keyboard now. That's just, you just want that much attention. Okay. And another one on Jordan Hewson. It was the Sydney Morning Herald. Now it's the ABC. Now it's Treasury with the Teachers Federation all wrapped in. I mean, Mr. Speaker, he's going troppo. Oh God, but John Howard had really wild eyebrows. This is on the ABC website. The picture of John Howard with his wild eyebrows is labeled John Howard, whose eyebrows Paul Keating dislikes. And Keating said, I will never get to the stage of wanting to lead the nation, standing in front of the mirror every morning, clipping the eyebrows here and clipping the eyebrows there with Jeanette and the kids. It's like spot the eyebrow. Ooh, this is a hard one, talking about Treasurer Peter Costello. Well, the thing about poor old Costello, he's all tip and no iceberg. You know, he can throw a punch across the Parliament, but the bloke he should be throwing the punch to is Howard. Of course, he doesn't have the ticker for it. Oh my God, just talking generally about the coalition. The opposition put all its faith in some notion that the Japanese would be asking for some contracts for coal. The opposition could not manage a tart shop. Okay, I was going to stop there. But there's this great one on John Howard again. Oh, look, it's just John Howard being Howard, isn't it? You know, the little desiccated coconut's under pressure and he's attacking anything he can get his hands on. Desiccated coconut. Nice. Yeah, Shirazi, it's weird. Most Labor supporters now go, Jesus, I'm so glad Mark Latham didn't win the election when he was Labor leader, because there were signs at the time, but we now know he's a seriously unbalanced person. Like, there is something fucking wrong with him. There is absolutely no doubt that there is something seriously wrong with the Mark Latham's, let's call it, brain. Sorry, I just saw Milk Delaski here saying the only national party he supports is the Scottish National Party. fuck England, fair enough. Well, yeah, see, this is the weird thing. Like, at the time, we're going like, okay, hate John Howard, hope Labor win the election. No, okay, this guy, he's Mark Latham, okay, he's in there. And he did a couple weird as fuck things. But we're like, oh, it was only sort of after the fact we did a few more things. It started to become clear, wait, something's wrong with him. There is like something seriously wrong with him. And he's just become this hateful, bitter old shithead. And it's really really quite bizarre. Dr. Barber, can I believe Whitlam was Latham's friend and mentor? Look, again, maybe Latham was okay when he was younger and something just fucking happened that sent him off the rails. Because, man, something happened. There's something wrong with that boy. I don't know what it was, but there's something not right with that boy. Yes, it was like, well, we dodged a bullet with Mark Latham, but yeah, then we got John Howard for another term. Charlie saying Latham's a MGTOW. Probably. He's very vocal about hating feminists and honestly women in general. He's an awful, awful, awful fucking person. I mean, his constant, unwarranted attacks on Rosie Batty, speaking out about domestic violence, you know, just because her estranged ex-husband beat her son to death with a cricket bat at a school event in front of her. You know, wow. He's just a piece of shit. Fox of Fate. Whitlam did not get kicked out for corruption. That's a complex situation. There was some weird and dodgy shit that happened in Whitlam's time. The key thing was the Whitlam government didn't have or lost control of the Senate, and in a not really kosher move, the opposition led by Malcolm Fraser blocked supply, which is to, you know, they're talking about, you know, in the US, they're talking about shutting down the government. Well, that actually happened here, forced a bit of a constitutional crisis. Most people, or a number of people in the Liberal Party, thought actually blocking supply, like blocking money to the government, was the wrong thing to do. But Malcolm Fraser was basically hard as nails about it. And then all this shifty stuff happened. I mean, for fuck's sake, the CIA were involved because Whitlam was a real lefty. Basically, the government, the democratically elected government, was sacked by the Queen's representative, the Governor General, elected by nobody. Ned Kelly, Milk Deleska. As in, what do I think? Look, I think Ned Kelly was a product of his time. We were speaking earlier about mythologizing Anzac Day. The Kelly gang have been thoroughly mythologized. And it's very weak. Okay, because they were outlaws. They were marginalized Irish settlers. The police force at the time was definitely absolutely corrupt and violent. And a lot of people paint Ned Kelly as, you know, a hero of the poor and downtrodden. And a lot of people have criticized him and say, well, there's this thing where his gang killed these 3 coppers that they had prisoner, and that conflicts some people. I honestly think with some people at the time, it's like, why did they kill these coppers? And it was like, well, because they were coppers, basically. But again, famously, this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand the implications of. Ned Kelly's last stand, Glen Rowan, he had a plan. A huge number of police were sent to get him. He was at the Glen Rowan pub, and they came by train. And Kelly had a plot to derail the train. He'd blown up the tracks at a certain point. And the plan was to derail the train, basically kill this huge number of cops. But someone who was there in Glen Rowan and knew about it and thought it was a terrible thing snuck out and sort of flagged down the train so it never went off. But if that hadn't happened, if Kelly's plan had gone through and this huge number of coppers had been killed, politically, that would have been huge. The state would have been on the verge of revolution at that point. Australia would conceivably be an incredibly different place, incredibly different, if that particular plot to kill all these coppers had gone through. But it didn't, so they just got captured and then hung at Melbourne jail. And yes, Dr. Obama executed on November 11th, same day Whitlam was dismissed, also, of course, known as Remembrance Day. So it's a funny date in Australia. It's Remembrance Day, the anniversary of the Whitlam dismissal, and the anniversary of Ned Kelly's execution. The heretic John Brown. I don't think I know enough about John Brown. We had, basically, Ned Kelly was a bushranger, an outlaw, a criminal, a robber. We had fucking scary, hardcore criminals. You look at these things about, you know, like Wild West cowboys. They got these 6 guns. Bushrangers would just be going around with shotguns, and because there was a lot of money around in the gold rush at the time. There's lots of gold being moved about, so there was lots of opportunity for criminality there. But yes, that's a whole thing that's been mythologized. Oh yes, that's the line from Red Gum's Poor Ned. Poor Ned, you're better off dead. At least you get some peace of mind. So I did see a reference. Is it cocktail time? I finished my lime cordial. So halfway there. I was looking. Okay, so I looked up. Is there a traditional ANZAC Day drink? And I looked it up, and apparently it's rum and milk. To which I say, fuck off, because rum actually curdles milk. I am not drinking rum and milk. And so I was looking up cocktails, mixed drinks that are reputed to have links to the military. And turns out one of my favorite cocktails apparently has lineage with the military. The sidecar, which is seriously my favorite, right up there, one of my favorite cocktails. It's like cognac and Cointreau and lemon juice. Very simple one. A lot of good cocktails are the simple ones. But I looked up, you know, what are the, you know, traditionally military-linked cocktails, and some of them have really obvious names, like the Army Navy, which I've seen before, and that's basically just gin. There's gin with lemon juice, and I think the traditionals all get the almond syrup, but you know, you use sugar syrup, or I've got agave syrup. So it's basically just gin, lemon juice, and a sweetener. I didn't know. I looked up a Cuba Libre. Cuba Libre has its roots in the Spanish-American War, and it's just white rum, as in Bacardi, Coke, and lime. Yeah, in that sense, like, I don't know. But so you get weird ones. There's one called a Gunfire, which is hot black tea and rum. So it's just a shot of rum in tea. But yeah, my favorite, the sidecar, is on this. I'm looking this up. Invented around the end of World War I in London or Paris. Reputed to be an anonymous American army captain liked to ride in a motorcycle sidecar, invented it. That's probably apocryphal. It's one for the Americans. A bald eagle martini has tequila and grapefruit juice and cranberry juice and lime juice and lemon juice. So it's tequila with a bunch of juices, and you salt the rim, of course, for a tequila thing. Okay, this one sounds dangerous. The Army Ranger. That's rum, Bacardi, with Red Bull and Jägermeister. Actually, I haven't had any Jägermeister. I've got Jägermeister up there. I haven't had any. Well, I'm not going to have a fucking energy drink this late at night. Oh, I love this one. This one, the Uncle Sam, because it's red, white, and blue. It's one of the ones where you try and layer stuff in a shot glass. Cinnamon schnapps, peppermint schnapps, and rompermints. Apparently, that's red, white, and blue drinks, and you try and layer it so you get the red, white, and blue. But I think I'm going to go sidecar. It's an excuse to make a sidecar, which is one of my favorites. So, but I don't have the stuff together. I should get some stuff together. What are you doing, Mimsy? Sarah, I will just throw this out to you. Any bar that doesn't throw you out for asking for an Irish car bomb is not a bar I want to be. Basically, asking for an Irish car bomb is super fucked. If you are like on St. Patrick's Day, if you ask for an Irish car bomb or a black and tan and the bar doesn't throw you out, it's a shitty bar. Yeah, not being too harsh to you, but I'm just saying for your own protection, I recommend never, ever, 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 ever asking for that because it's incredibly fucking insulting. So I just noticed I missed a few things. Justin, you think my election cocktail, victory cocktail, should be some sort of Bloody Mary? I don't think so. It's not my thing. Oh, sorry, Dr. Brahma, you asked me about because I mentioned Pink Floyd. I'm not super into Pink Floyd. Look, I still love modern music. I grew up with 80s and 90s indie music, and I still love 80s and 90s indie music. But if I'm in the car, I'll have Triple J on. I like modern indie music. The stuff that's really good now, I would just call pop music. Like, probably would have been a bit derisive of the term pop in the 80s and 90s because it was more rock or electro. You know, I mean, like, where's my phone? Oh, it's in my pocket. Mimsy's on my leg. I just gotta get my phone out of my pocket, Mimsy. Like, because I got YouTube Premium, and you get YouTube Music with that. Where's the YouTube Music app gone? Oh, there it is. Look, I'll tell you. I'll pull up a playlist from here of modern stuff and tell you the ones I like. Oh, my customized mixtape base. Okay, so top alt indies of 2018. If I go through this, yeah, Amy Shark, great. Halsey, yes. Billie Eilish, yes. Gorillaz, okay. Rubens, okay. Arctic Monkeys, okay. Robinson, no. Unknown Skeggs, that's only when they're good. Florence and the Machine, yeah, pretty good. Mumford Son, yeah. Lana Del Rey, she's okay. Same bloody acts keep popping up in here. Bishop Briggs, she's pretty good. MGMT, yeah, they're okay. I'm not super into Ocean Alley. They got #1 on the Triple J Hottest 100. I don't hate them, but I'm not super into them. Cosmos Midnight, they have some good stuff. Winston Surfshirt, Mallrat, Tash Sultana, G-Flip, the 1975 Churches, Matt Corby, Hockey Dad. I like all of them. DMAs, Confidence Man. Basically, I think there's a lot of good indie music about at the moment. I didn't put Mimsy off for very long. The Heretic. I kept meaning to watch Cobra Kai on YouTube. Actually, I haven't watched it. I haven't really watched any of the premium series. Milked Alaska. I watched the first couple episodes of Wayne. and that was okay, but I just watched the first couple episodes. I mean, I got YouTube Premium mostly to not have to sit through ads when I watch videos. I haven't watched a lot of the premium content yet, but I have been meaning to watch Cobra Kai because I heard good things about it. Belinda, which 80s band singers do I like? You know, big ones like The Cure and New Order and the Smiths and whatnot. A lot of Australian ones that maybe not as well known, like Falling Joys and the Hummingbirds. Again, I'll go through an 80s list in here. And oh yeah, Billy Bragg was a big one of mine. Where's an 80s playlist on here? I'll tell you who I like. There's a 90s one. Where was it? I saw it in here. 90s indie workout. Who's on the 90s one that I like? Blink-182 are okay. Nirvana, yeah. Rob Zombie was sort of humorous. Green Day, they're okay. It's never been. Foo Fighters, yes. Rage Against the Machine, some's better than others. Third Eye Blind, they're okay. Offspring, Foo Fighters, yes. Corner, okay. Blur, they're okay. Marilyn Manson's okay. Perfect Circle, they're okay. Oh my God, Presidents of the United States of America, that was a weird band. They had some okay songs. Silverchair, they had some good stuff. Lemonheads had some good stuff. Stone Roses had some good stuff. Living End had some good stuff. Oh, Spiderbait had some great stuff. Yes, Miss Foxification, there's some good ones. REM, Hunters and Collectors. Is he going to do that? Not that I mind the top 40 stuff, but I was more into the indie stuff in the 80s. But yes, it's good to have a breadth of stuff you like. Yeah, Jesus and Mary Chain, they're one of my favorites. Luke, no, not into the Choir Boys, Bogan Rock. Well, I have to admit, as a lad, I was into the Angels and Cold Chisel. Okay, Mimsy, I was going to make a cocktail. Thanks. Hey, hello, I'm Mimsy. Hello. Just go over there for a bit. I've got to get some things together. Oh, my legs. Right, so I've got my glass. All right, so I'm going to move some stuff around. I've got a bit of mess about me. All right. Where's my cocktail shaker? Might actually do this one. All right. I'll put a bit of ice in the cocktail shaker. Okay, so we need Cointreau. What did I say? Oh, look, it's right here. And cognac. And some lemon juice. Lemon juice. Bottled lemon juice rather than fresh lemon juice, which some would frown at. But needs must when the devil drives. Milk Delaski, you're into the hardcore stuff, Suicidal Tendency and the Cro-Mags. I don't mind a bit of hardcore from time to time. I was really into Jim Fetus's stuff. J.G. Thirlwell recorded a bunch of stuff under different variations of Fetus. Really tasteful names like Scraping Fetus Off the Wheel and You've Got Fetus on Your Breath. The Fetus All Nude Review. And he released an album with another guy under the name Wise Blood, which is about the most diabolical record I own. Like, the songs are just all about Satan worship and serial killers. But yeah, so, oh man, I want to get back into the Fetus stuff, actually. I'll probably get a playlist of them. Am I still losing kilograms? Look, well, I'm still on about 10 kilograms down since the start of the year, which is good. I need to make a bit more of an effort, I think, to lose some more. I've got to keep going. I've got to lose about another 20 or even 30 kilograms. It's a long road. Looking at it being, you know, a project for most of the year. Dr. Barr, my opinion on dire straits. Look, they were technically very good, but more than a tad dorky. I'm not really into dire straits. Midnight Oil, I was very into back in the day. Saw them live a couple of times. They were an awesome live band, Midnight Oil. I'm going to put a big block of ice in my tiki mug as well. Again, this is not kosher. This, okay. In fact, because I shook it with that, I won't. I'll do it the sophisticated way. Get my sophisticated glass. This is my sophisticated sidecar drinking glass. I don't know if you can see that it's actually etched. It's a very nice glass. Ooh, just perfect. It just perfectly fills the glass. Kind of looks healthy, almost looks like orange juice. Oh yeah. It's nothing quite like a simple drink that's also really tasty. You get these different flavors going through it. That's the mark of a good cocktail. It has different flavors. You don't have to be really, Fox of Fate, Peter Garrett, the Midnight Oil lead singer, was in Parliament for Labor, and he actually served in the Gillard government. Actually, I think he was in both the Rudd and Gillard governments. He got a bit of a black eye, completely unjustified, for being, he was the minister who was responsible for the Pink Bats program. Now, I don't know who is as much of Australian politics tragic as me who remembers it. It was a government program, and this was both an environmental and cost program to subsidize the installation of insulation in people's roofs. Became known as Pink Bats Affair, because as soon as it was like, okay, government subsidies for installing insulation, installation of insulation. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. All these environmental consultants popped up overnight. There's like a whole training course for being an environmental consultant, and selling people insulation bats for their ceiling. And some of the outfits were less professional than others, and there were a couple of on-site deaths in installations. And in an incredibly cynical move, typical for politics, but just disgustingly cynical, the opposition tried to make a big deal about, oh, you killed those poor, because they were apprentices who died. You killed those poor boys with your program. You didn't have enough oversight in place, and it was straight up disgusting. The cynicism was disgusting, because people are killed on building sites every week, and any call to make the big development companies responsible, criminally responsible, for the deaths of workers on building sites, the Liberals will jack up and go, oh, government interference, blah, 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 blah. But when they saw cheap shots about, there was a government program and some people working on this government program were killed in workplace accidents, therefore all the government's fault. Absolute fucking horseshit. What I would have wanted to see is statistically, with these deaths at a higher rate than on a normal building site. Now, my personal view is we want no deaths on building sites, but the cynicism and opportunism of the opposition to go, it's all the government's fault. They had this program to put the pink bats in and then people died on site. It's the government's fault. And they won't apply the same sort of scrutiny to the workers who are killed on building sites every week in this country. It's just absolutely disgusting. And also, Rudd, this happened under Rudd, if I remember rightly, and Rudd seemed super spineless and fucking ran for cover at the slightest bloody criticism. So yes, about the old pink bat deaths, I would say there should have been no deaths. I will absolutely say there should have been no deaths on the sites. But for the opposition to not apply the same level of scrutiny to other workplace deaths is absolutely disgusting. Dr. Brahma, has seen the anti-union that's been out on TV? No, in as much as I almost never watch commercial TV, so I may never see them, although I do watch Foxtel and they have ads on there, so maybe they'll be on there. It doesn't surprise me at all that the Conservatives are running anti-union ads. I am super pro-union. At the same time, I'm enough of a rational adult that I can say, like, if there are incidences of corruption in union leadership, I'm sure that happens, and prosecute the motherfuckers. Same as if there corruption in banks or the government or the police force, fucking prosecute them. They're saying unions bully people. Oh my God, they're the scum of the fucking earth. I mean, the fact that wages have stagnated for the last couple of decades while productivity has shot up, and so the profits of company and by extension pay of CEOs has skyrocketed. It's fucking criminal. And they're all like, yeah, I think we should take away penalty rates too. Yeah, definitely get rid of penalty rates. Scum of the fucking earth. It's class warfare. I'm all for it because in the end, they get dragged into the street and fucking strung from the lampposts. Like, there was a hilarious, it was one of the Murdoch rags, the Australian, I think, had this thing about like, if Shorten wins, the balance of power will shift. The people who own companies won't have absolute power and the unions will have more power. I'm like, well, fucking good. It always cracks me up when they're like seriously out of touch. And they go, well, then the unions would have more influence and workers' rights would be more important than profits. Yes, workers' rights should be more important than profits, quite simply. Miss Foxification, the standover tactics of the past. Man, again, like I could cite unions that I think have done very good things for their members, but have also indulged in something that you couldn't really describe as anything other than standover tactics. Note the BLF springs to mind. There was definitely some corruption and violence in the BLF, but by the same token, they looked after their members. And I think, which was the one for the dockyard workers? There were some pretty wild stories in the 70s and 80s about the unions that was representing painters and dockers. That was it, the Painters and Dockers Union. There were some pretty wild stories. But again, it is quite hard to know which of those stories is absolutely true and what's like conservative political and corporate propaganda. But I am unashamedly pro-union. I have read that thing in the past about unions working with the mafia. I loved the season of The Wire. I don't know who's seen The Wire. It's a incredibly high standard American TV show from about 10 years ago, maybe longer, that ran for 5 seasons. And season 2 or 3 centered on these dockyard unions and the workers, and the boss of this union is clearly involved with organized crime figures, and there's this unpleasant thing where a shipping container that's actually full of women who are being trafficked from Eastern Europe, the ventilation, something goes wrong with the crim deal, and the guy's trying to cover his tracks to kill all the women. He shuts off the ventilation and they all die in the container. So it's pretty serious stuff. It goes on, spreads out over the whole season. And what it turns out, the union boss was working with the crims, like sneaking their illegal contraband through customs and getting all the stuff through and getting payoffs, so he could keep paying the workers, because there was no work for the union members, and he was taking the mafia money so he could actually keep paying people, which is a very interesting twist in the storyline. And Shaz, you raise a good point that the mafia worked very closely with government and law. I mean, hey, it's like the former opposition leader here in Victoria, who got his ass handed to him in the last state election. He tried to push this law and order thing, spreading the lie that African crime gangs are totally out of control in Melbourne. People are scared to go out. Not saying crime doesn't happen. Not saying African youths aren't involved in some crimes. I'm just saying that calling it a crime wave and saying it's out of control and people are scared to leave the house is fucking horseshit. And not least, he was going on Law and Order. But yes, Fox of Fate brought it up, Lobster with a Mobster. If you want a fun story, you do a search on that. Matthew Guy having a fundraising dinner with a person identified by Australian law enforcement agencies as the alleged head of the Calabrian Mafia. And so he's trying to run on a law and order platform when he's implicated in Lobster with a Mobster. It's fucking hilarious. But anyway. Oh my God. Sorry, Milk Delaski, you almost made me snort the drink. Your granny used to tell you stories. She found Jimmy Hoffa's body at a cottage in Salisbury. And he then also had Alzheimer's. That's it. People might not get that reference. Jimmy Hoffa was a big union leader in like the 60s, 70s, and he just disappeared. Obviously got killed by the mob elements that he was involved with, but body never found. Like, he just disappeared. He was a very high profile person, and he just disappeared. I like that, Dr. Obama. You're getting your law degree to be a union rep. Totally thumbs up for you on that. Yes, it's like a lot of people maybe don't get Jimmy Hoffa references because it's a little bit in the past. But yeah, he was a union boss. He was definitely involved with mafia types, and he just disappeared. Like he crossed someone, and I don't know, they buried him in the desert outside Vegas or something like that. No, Mimsy, don't go up there. Come sit on your seat. Come sit on your seat. Come be here for your fans. Come up here. Don't go climbing up on counters. That's it. Yeah. See? Now everyone can worship you. Fox of Fate. Yes, but Harold Holt did just drown us. It's funny. That's I think it's full of a popular conspiracy theory for Australia. Serving Prime Minister Harold Holt went for a swim in the ocean and disappeared. Body never found. There's all these things, people saying he swam out to a Chinese submarine and whatnot. And I always thought that is a funny story. And yes, there is a swim centre named after him. But I've actually been to it's out past Geelong where he went swimming and got dragged out to sea. And it's like, who the fuck would, it's this super rough bit of sea. And of course he fucking drowned and his body got dragged out to sea by this fucking rip. Like it's this insanely dangerous bit of water. What the fuck was it? Who let him go in there? It was when I finally saw it, it's like, oh my God. No, of course he drowned and got dragged out to sea. This is a terrible bit of water to go swimming in. It's so dangerous. It's ridiculous. Yes, do the Harold Holt, Shirazi. So Aussie rhyming slang. If someone runs away, if they bolt away, they've done the bolt, they've done the Harold Holt. Is foxification. That's a big thing for hiding bodies because yes, you do get crims involved in building sites, and they will sometimes time knocking someone off to coincide when a foundation's being laid on a big building, an office building or an apartment building, and they'll drop the body in the hole that the next day is going to be covered in several tons of concrete, which basically guarantees it never being found. Shirley, the burying Jimmy Hoffa in a stadium. I think there was a reference to that in The Simpsons, where they were talking about the union at the power plant, and said we need a new union rep. Ever since our last rep disappeared just after he said he was going to clean up the union, and we all hope he turns up safe and well sometime soon. And they all laugh, and it's such a dark fucking joke. And then it just cuts to a football game, and a body-shaped mound, a player trips over a body-shaped mound on the playing field. It's one of the darkest jokes The Simpsons ever said. Their union rep got knocked off because he said he was going to clean up the union. Whoa. There, I think you might be onto something. Maybe Jimmy Hoffa got knocked into a vat of chemicals by Batman and became the Joker. I mean, how many origin stories has the Joker had? Of course, there's that movie coming out later this year with what's his face, Joaquin Phoenix playing Joker. May or may not be good. It's interesting that they got such a serious actor as Joaquin Phoenix to do a comic book villain, Joker. I think it's like, the final nails in the coffin for fuckwit who was the Joker in Suicide Squad, Jared Leto. That was such a fucking train wreck. That was terrible. Worst Joker ever. And apparently Leto is just a complete arsehole. Yeah. His version of method acting is to do crazy and disgusting things to the other cast members all the time. Because the Joker's crazy and I'm playing the Joker. That's a good point, Shirazi, about the Joker's origin is a lie. Which, oh my God, like the Dark Knight version, a young Aussie lad playing the Joker. That was just incredible. And the way, because yeah, he lied about his origin. He tells that really heartfelt story, like about his dad cutting a smile into his face, saying, "Why so serious?" And you're like sitting there going, "Holy fuck, that's messed up." And then he tells someone else an equally compelling but completely different origin story, and it's just like, oh my god. I have to. It was talking about why so serious. We have mentioned. Oh my god. No, it's too late. I keep forgetting names. Heath Ledger is. I was trying to remember who was the Joker. Yeah, and that was the thing, because I mean, Heath Ledger was good. He's done a bunch of good movies, particularly when he was even younger. There's an Australian crime movie that I think not a lot of people have seen, called Two Hands. Oh, fuck, it's good. He's like a young bloke getting involved with crims and is way out of his depth. And it goes on some dark and twisted fucking turns. But yes, that's a little recommendation for you if you've never seen it. An Aussie crime film from, oh God, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, called Two Hands, is such a good movie. Very good. Great Aussie cast. And yeah, there are some very good crime movies. Shirazi, yeah, I regard as like 10 Things I Hate About You as a bit of a guilty pleasure movie. For those who don't know, that's a modernization of Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. I don't watch Gotham. That's right. They've got a Joker on Gotham, of course. I haven't been watching Gotham. I've seen the occasional episode. I've seen a couple of episodes of Gotham. They're clearly setting up, you know, it was an origin story for Penguin and Joker and Riddler. And I think even Bane was in one episode, if I remember rightly. And of course, you know, Commissioner Gordon and Batman and Catwoman as well. Shows you think Taming of the Shrew is problematic. Shakespeare's a product of his time, trying to judge Shakespeare by modern standards is a fool's errand, honestly. A very interesting story, because I did a theatre degree, and that's where I met AZ. People occasionally ask, where did you meet AZ? We did the same theatre degree, although I'm a little bit older than him, so my final year was his first year. And we had some very good lecturers and tutors over the year. And a tutor and lecturer I had in the first year, he had a long history in theatre before he went into teaching. And he was Jewish, and he told the story, two different experiences he had with different actors playing Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. And one was, and these were both Jewish actors who played Shylock. And one of them insisted on basically reworking the script. So the things that he regarded as the worst anti-Semitic tropes in The Merchant of Venice were removed. The other one said, no, I'm going to do the original text, but I'm just going to play Shylock with integrity as someone who is convinced he is right, even though he's doing something that is wrong. He, in and of himself, is not evil and believes he is within his rights to do what he's doing. And I'm just going to play Shylock in a way that I think gives him integrity. And it's very interesting. No, Heath Ledger wasn't the shrew. Julia Stiles wasn't taming. Other way around. The shrew was definitely the female character. It was Julia Stiles in the movie. And yeah, Heath Ledger was the man who's taming her. But yeah, I mean, Jesus, it's quite easy to find problematic stuff in Shakespeare, and anything for that matter. I mean, you know, Shakespeare's just a bunch of dick jokes with pretty words around them, honestly. I mean, my favorite one, we were doing one of the comedies when I was at uni. It's the one with the twins. Was it Love's Labour's Lost? I'm trying to remember which one it was. But it's one of the comedies, and it's a very complicated, confused love story with different people falling in love with different people. And there's this one line where one character is trying to set up another character, and he fakes a love letter from the lady. So this guy will think the lady's writing him love letters, and they're wondering if they were able to fake this lady's handwriting well enough. And he reads the letter, and the guy reading the letter, he's convinced it's genuine. It's from his lady love, because he recognizes her hand. These be her very C's, her U's, and her T's. And for those who missed the joke, one of the plotting characters who's spying on him repeats it and goes, her C's, her U's, and her T's. And basically, the thing that you hit hard on that is we're talking about her C, her U, and her T. And that's right there in Shakespeare. That's sophisticated. That's some sophisticated humor right there. Had to keep the cheap seats happy. They're the ones who keep the theatre in business. Ah, yes, the Heretic. I do like that McKellen adaptation of Richard III. What was interesting, because they set it in a modern war setting, and it's all tanks and guns and whatnot. And one of the most famous lines from Richard III is, a horse, my kingdom for a horse," because of course they're all mounted in the time that it's set. But in the McKellen film adaptation, it's like a modern war setting, like, or World War II setting, and Richard III's done as like a fascist. And yeah, he's either a staff car or a half track or a tank or something, I don't remember exactly, but the vehicle he's in breaks down, is like stuck in the mud, and that's when he does the line, a horse, my kingdom for a horse, which was an absolutely brilliant. He's like, okay, Milk Alaska, swastikas everywhere. It was actually Nazi Germany. See, I don't remember it that clearly. I knew he was a fascist. I didn't know it was literally Nazi Germany. I didn't remember that it was literally Nazi Germany. But it was a beautiful use of the line. Like, he wanted a horse because the roads were so shit, cars couldn't drive them. The roads had been shelled so badly, cars couldn't drive on them. So yeah, that's why he did the line, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. But yeah, basically, yeah, you can definitely throw the problematic label on a bunch of Shakespeare stuff, but there is no getting away from it. And is just an incredible writer. The writing in Shakespeare is phenomenal. The wordplay, and there's a thing people say that bugs the shit out of me, because it's not strictly true. That people always talk about the number of phrases Shakespeare invented, and there are hundreds of them, words and phrases Shakespeare invented, but we don't know that Shakespeare invented them. A more accurate thing to say is Shakespeare's texts contain the oldest recorded use of these words and phrases. The fact is, his plays had to be intelligible to his audiences, so the words and phrases he used were very likely to be in general usage, or at least when he did invent words, I'm sure he did invent some words and phrases. He put them in a context so people would know what it means. It's kind of like, internet slang that mutates so fast. If you see the words and phrases in isolation, you could sit there going, well, what the fuck does that mean? But if you see them in context, the majority of the time, it's clear what they probably mean. We're having the argument about the Third Reich. Yes, the swastika existed for many, many, many years in Eastern religions as a symbol of peace, and the Nazis co-opted it. Yes. Bad Nazis. Who knew Nazis were bad? The thing. Oh, Dr. Obama, I've seen the Christian propaganda film Unplanned. It is, look, my life is too precious to spend, 90 minutes watching some shit like that. It's for those who haven't heard of it, it's anti-abortion propaganda, and fuck that noise as far as I'm concerned. So I think I'll put too much lemon juice in this. That's okay, though. Not the worst thing in the world. Oh God, no, Fox Fat, don't get me start on the modern Nazis and the Nazi adjacents. They do things like, object to you saying, well, yeah, the Nazis should have been killed in World War II. They were just soldiers following orders. It's like, no, you people, I just can't wrap my head around it. It's now gotten to the stage where they literally openly defend the actual World War II Nazis and say, oh, you shouldn't say it's good to kill even the Nazis in World War II, because that's a terrible thing to say. It's not. It really isn't. But, that's me and my wacky ideas about, totalitarians who want to exterminate whole races, ethnic groups, and religious groups are bad. Oh, God. This Foxification, someone wanted to watch you an anti-psych medication documentary and you worked out it was by Scientology. Yeah, no, the people, the paranoid people who argue against modern medication, whether it's psych medication or cancer medication, where they're dangerous fucking fruitcakes. Absolute fucking units. What you doing there, music? Yeah, and I've seen, man, having been on YouTube for bloody 13 years, I've seen a lot of creepy people over the years. Like everyone now fixates on Logan Paul and that, and PewDiePie, and rightly so. But from the early days, there's been people doing very creepy cult-like shit, and yeah, some really evil shit like telling people don't take prescription medicine for mental health issues if you've been prescribed anti-psych medication, don't take it. It's like, that shit's just dangerous. Like, and I said, it even goes beyond medication for mental health issues through to physical health one, telling people not to take cancer medication or not. Like, these people are super fucked. Terrible. Oh yeah, Mr. Aaron, no, the identitarians are white supremacists. It's a weird word they've come up with. If you're not familiar with it, and someone talks about being an identitarian, that means they're a white supremacist. So Milk Glasgow, your granddad died you never met him because he died in Operation Market Garden. Rather, oh my God. Again, my own history knowledge is like shit. Because I called this Anzac Day one. I talked about Anzac Day being mythologized, but even things like the Normandy landing, D-Day. I think a lot of people think that was the end of the war. Like the D-Day landing was horrific, like with thousands of the landing forces being killed in the first couple of days, mostly on the first day. But they secured the beach and they're there in Europe. I think a lot of people, and I'm counting myself in this in the past, think that that was the end of World War II. And it wasn't. It was the beginning of the end, but so many things could have gone wrong. Like Operation Market Garden was a thing that went wrong for the Allies. It was a significant success for the Nazis. But you know, the push lasted for another year. Yes, okay, if you want to watch, like I said, I like war movies. This is a war mini-series, Band of Brothers. Again, it's very US centric. It's about Charlie Company from their landing on Normandy right through to the end of the war in Europe. Very, very good series. Yes, Captain Pugwash. We would not have won World War II without communist Russia. There is no two ways about that. And of the famous statistic, which I think is accurate, of all dead, that's counting combat forces and civilians, but I would say probably excluding the people murdered in the gas chambers by the Nazis. But out of every 3 dead, 1 was Russian. It's like so many Russian civilians died, but an enormous amount of Russian soldiers too. We think a fun movie to watch is the George C. Scott Patton movie. It's like from the 60s, I think. George C. Scott playing General Patton, because Patton was, man, he was a hard ass, and he was sort of thing that he's like a good wartime general because he will just fucking go, but not a good peacetime general because he's like not happy unless he's at war. Like he was thoroughly of the opinion, because the US and Allied forces and Russia ended up in Berlin at the same time. He was full on advocating the commies are our enemy as well. We're here in Europe. We should press on and fucking take on the commies. There was not a lot of support for that. Then he died in an accident in Berlin or Paris. If it was the modern world, that would be a massive conspiracy theory. Patton, the war hero who wanted to continue the fight against the commies, being killed in a traffic accident. The conspiracy theorists would go nuts over that. Captain Russia. Yeah, Japan, the Chinese that Japan killed, that was even technically the worst of that, was before World War II. They invaded China before the formal declarations of World War II. So I think a lot of the time those casualties, and the civilian casualties in China are not counted. But I'm not that hardcore historian to know that for sure, actually. But I think we can all agree that war is nasty, and politicians go for it far too readily, and then lots of people get killed who didn't deserve to be killed. And we should try and avoid that, really. You know, when an absolute totalitarian rises, you don't have any choice. But yeah, there's been a lot of really shitty stuff done in the name of politics, particularly since World War II. Don't even get me started on World War I, completely unjustified. But anyway, I am going to go to Betty Buys. Oh God, Milk Alaska. No, no. Yeah, if you read about the Holocaust, it's awful. And yeah, no, I've sort of read and seen too much about the Holocaust. It's just absolutely awful. Industrial scale slaughter of humans. I mean, like, what the fuck is wrong with you that you can do that? Just go for industrial scale slaughter of humans. Fuck me. Yeah, now so Miss Fox Face saying sweet thing. Let's say something nice, that you're all awesome, and I enjoy your company immensely, and I thank you one and all for spending some time with me this evening. It has, as always, been fantastic. I hope you all look after yourselves. I've got a little bit of video of ANZAC. I did not do a TFU Friday last week. I remember saying on Thursday night, I'm going to try and do TFU. I'll try and do it tomorrow. I've got like a little bit of video of AZ to put in. It's more or less like proof of life, the fact that he's actually still alive, because I was hanging out with him at hospital today. So when I do TFU, I've got a little bit of video of AZ to put in, and I'll hopefully be seeing him again and getting. We have all sorts of plans, particularly once he is better. But I hope you all look after yourselves and have a good day or couple of days until I maybe see you again, either with a pre-recorded video or another live stream. But take care, one and all, and I will say bye for now. Waving bye.